So,
Sorry, yeah.
so I'm Dougal Shaw, and I'm the senior correspondent at Business Leader, which is a media publication that specializes in business. But we also do events and awards and other stuff as well for the business community. Before that, I was at the BBC News for 20 years, so I only just moved job last summer. And most of my time there, like just over 10 years, I was in the business team doing business stories. So basically with these talks, I think the best thing is if I can make it super concentrated and relevant to the audience, to you guys. And here I'm kind of assuming that you're either sort of business owners or aspiring business owners, or at the very least you're quite kind of entrepreneurial and you like making creative content for online. And that's kind of been my speciality while at the BBC, and also now a business leader, making digital videos, which did well on the web, went on TV as well at the BBC, but also did particularly well online on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and places like that. And these days, a business leader, my main focus actually is LinkedIn, because that's obviously best for business. Just so, but by the way, we had a last minute mishap with me not being able to share my screen. So we're kind of, through the help of Emmy, she's going to, every now and again, I'll ask her to move the slide on, because there's some pictures I want to play and some videos too. And by the way, when I play the videos, if sometimes I know of these things that they can like stutter a little bit because of the latency in an online webinar like this, I have put in the chat some links where you can see in your own time the videos that I'm talking about if there is a problem. And important thing to say, at the end, we'll definitely have time for a Q&A. So that's how to keep it super relevant. If you've got questions you want to ask me, that's when I can do my best to answer. Anyway, I start with this picture because it's one I don't have that many of myself in action, but this is one that I did about 10 years ago when I was first starting to use my phone at BBC News as a way to make films. And despite this really stupid pose I'm in, I don't know why I'm sort of got my hand behind my back like that. This is the kind of basic setup for doing a filming with a mobile phone that's not too dissimilar to what I use today. Where I still might film this way sometimes, but I don't know if you can see it in the picture. It was typical of me at the time. I was so excited at the technology and using all the gadgets that I kind of overdid it a bit. So you can see that I've improvised there's an iPad filming on that sort of baby chair, giving a second angle on that interview. And then right in the foreground, you can just see the top edge of a Sony smartphone. And I thought it'd be really clever. I'll film this interview with 3 different angles. So that's the kind of cool stuff you could do with phones, filming on your own. But yeah, I've kind of got over that now. The best thing with storytelling is to really keep it simple and keep the act of actually filming very simple as well. Because once you've done that, it gives you more mental bandwidth to really be creative, use your soft human skills, and think about the ideas that you're filming about, because that's what's going to make it do well online, not how well filmed it is or how fancy it looks. And one other little pointer I'd make at this point is, if you're someone who doesn't film at the moment but wants to get into it, the phone is a brilliant way to start filming. But I would say to you, there's kind of 2 aspects to it. You should try and learn to edit at the same time. And you can teach yourself to edit by YouTube videos. There's lots of good free software. I think CapCut is free. Even iMovie is quite good for simple editing. But it's 2 parts of the same equation. If you're going to get better at filming, you've got to get better at editing, in my opinion, and the 2 skills complement each other. So that's definitely how I kind of improved. If we go to the next slide, please. The reason I want to play this video is this is one of the last TV films that I made for BBC News before I left last year. And I had lots of things that would run on BBC London News. So BBC London means it's basically going out on BBC One. And I had other stuff as well that went out on Breakfast TV and News Channel, Global News. And at the beginning, when I first started filming with my phone, I was a bit paranoid, and I thought it's not going to be good enough quality to run on TV. And I remember when I first gave a TV report to the planning team, because as a journalist, you want them to run your stories, but they've got hundreds every day to choose from. To make life easier, you have to give them details like the Astons that go on the screen, so the people's names that appear in it for sound bites, and also you write the cue for the presenter. So you basically write the introduction that the presenter says before it plays. And I remember for the first one I did, I said something like, and by the way, this report was filmed on a mobile phone. because I almost felt like I had to apologize for it. And in the end, they did run that one, but of course they didn't have to say that at the end. It would have sounded stupid. And ultimately, all they care about is, does it look fine? Does it look good enough on the program? It doesn't stand out. Is it a good story? They don't care how you filmed it. They would never say this report was filmed with a Sony, this one was done with a Canon. It's like, it's irrelevant really. And no doubt, because I've done it, hundreds of times, you can film stuff on your phone and it's good enough to go on TV. And even now, people stop me and say, "Oh, you're filming with the phone. That's cool, but that's good for Facebook and online, but it wouldn't be good enough for television." And it's good. They haven't, in their head, they haven't understood, because phones leapfrogged TVs about 10 years ago in terms of what they can do, the resolution, the technology. So the stuff you do on your phone can easily go on television. Don't forget how powerful the phone is. So that's why, if we just play this one, it's an example of what it looks like when it goes out on TV.
Now, walk up and down many high streets and you'll find dozens of empty shops. Entrepreneurs are coming up with solutions to help fill the gaps, it seems. It's all to do with pop-ups, where traders are given a space for a few weeks, giving a boost to new talent and also local economies. Dougal Shaw has been taking a look.
A morning pep talk before they meet the customers. These entrepreneurs all run successful online businesses. Now they're getting their first taste of high street retail on London's world-famous Carnaby Street.
For clothes, it's so important to try things on and see them in real life. So being in store is an amazing experience to give to our loyal customers.
I work with discarded balloons, turning them into fashion accessories and homeware. Meeting customers in a space like this has been great. The feedback's amazing, totally boosting my confidence.
More and more pop-up shops like these are filling retail spaces that fell vacant during COVID, as lockdowns accelerated the trend towards online shopping.
This shop was empty 6 weeks ago. It's now full of brilliant creatives from across London who are learning how to do their own shops, re-energising our high streets and making them better for everyone.
This project is supported by the Mayor of London's office. But some entrepreneurs have seen a business opportunity in satisfying this demand for pop-up spaces. PopUp Club has run more than 25 shops like this one across the UK since 2017. This latest one in Victoria, central London, took over a space left vacant by a chain of tea retailers.
We go into empty spaces, we share it out collaboratively, and say have 30 to 40 different artists or makers in one space and make it affordable and accessible for them.
We call this trend online to offline, or O2O. And what we're finding is that a lot of these retailers that started their lives purely online are now actually benefiting the high street by opening physical shops.
Such is the demand for pop-up spaces, there is even a kind of Airbnb platform for them, run by another business called Appear Here. It offers space in all kinds of places, from shopping centres and outdoor markets to warehouses. The hope with all of these pop-ups is that online entrepreneurs will get a taste for face-to-face retail, and so become the next generation of high street shop owners.
I definitely think I'll have my own shop in the future.
Dougal Shaw, BBC London.
So just a few things to say about that one. It shows that a TV report can be done with a phone, and I shot that with an iPhone 12, so that's like 4 generations old now. And TV reports are from a sort of creative storytelling point of view, in some ways they're quite boring to do because they haven't changed since in the last like 40 odd years. If you looked at the TV news bulletins from the 1990s, it's exactly the same format. It's about 2 minutes long, pardon me, strongest pictures at the beginning, 2 or 3 interviews, maybe quite strong pictures at the end, or something slightly emotional to finish it, voiceover explaining what's happening. And to tell that story like that in 2 minutes is actually quite easy, but there's not much room to be creative. So bear that in mind, because the digital ones that I'll show later, you've got much more control of the format and you can play around with different ways to make it more engaging. One other point I'll make about that one, although the main point is just remember how powerful the phone is if it can do stuff for TV, is when you're going out filming and you've got an idea, bearing in mind that, from my perspective, I'm not making documentaries like half-hour panoramas. I'm making 2 to 3 minute videos, so they're quite short. As a creative, first of all, you have to think visually. So you have to go into the story thinking, what are the visual opportunities that I can film? What has to be seen to understand this story? And you typically do a kind of storyboard, but for something that's short, you don't have to write it out or do a kind of cartoon or anything. I would just have it in my head. So I'd be thinking very carefully beforehand, what kind of shots am I going to have at the beginning? What's it going to, timings wise, where do I have to be to get certain shots that will only happen at a certain moment? When can I do my interviews? And trying to sort that in your head. And then you go into the situation, and then you've got to be willing to improvise and change all that, because there'll be certain opportunities that come up that you couldn't have known about. So for example, in that one, when I arrived at that shop, I'd never been there before, I had no idea what it was like, but it turned out all the different entrepreneurs had a morning meeting at the pop-up shop on Carnaby Street where they kind of discussed the day ahead. So I had to get that, because that's your chance to see them all together as a group, and that became the opening shot. So you've got to be thinking, what are the kind of opportunities here that will give me some kind of visual stimulation that's going to work in the film. If you can go to the next slide, please.
Now walk up and down many high streets.
No.
So just to show you a bit how things have changed in terms of how I do film the kits one along. That's how, when I first started using the phone, I would do a setup a bit like that. So really just replacing the phone for a big camera, and to be honest, it didn't change things that much. It was just to prove that the lens and stuff was good enough and working out how to get good sound. But otherwise I kept things the same. If you go to the next slide, that's more like the kit I use now. So to be honest, I very rarely use a tripod because it's quite heavy and I want to be nimble. I want to be like a fly in the wall as I record all this. Good thing about when you're filming with a phone is, so I always say it's a bit like driving an automatic car rather than a manual. Basically, if it looks good on the screen, you can kind of trust it's going to look good. And the phones are so good, the resolution is excellent, that rarely do you have a problem with the picture. And also the nature of the phone is that usually things don't go out of focus. It's very wide depth of field. So it doesn't take much to kind of keep that simple. The big thing we have to remember with a phone is it's not the sound is designed obviously for a phone call. So it's designed for when you're speaking like this. And what that means is that if you were, say, to do a voiceover or something for radio, and you went to a quiet room, you could record a very good high quality voiceover and the sound would be excellent. But if you're out in the street or in a room and you're doing an interview with someone and they're standing a meter away from you, the sound's going to be terrible because it's not designed for that. So you can see here what I've got in the rig is a microphone plugged into the lightning port. And there's so many bits of kits now, so you're kind of spoilt for choice, really. This one is a Rode adapter that's then plugged into a good broadcast mic. That Rode adapter costs about £150. They're quite expensive these days. And the microphone might be £100 as well. So you're investing about £250 to get really good sound. But I might as well show you now. So this is, if you can see here in the video, this is what I use at the moment, which is very similar. You need something, I think, to hold the phone. You don't want to be holding it by hand. You want to keep it steady. And also you need these little bits here because you could put on things like lights. Usually the phone is actually very good at handling natural light. And if you can see it with your own eyes, the phone will be fine. But sometimes I like to throw a bit of extra light on it. So you get things like that on it. This mic I'm using now is very similar to the one you see there. This one's made by Shure. It's a slightly different version. I don't mind sending some links to some of the different bits of kits I use later. And so I would just have, I won't get it right out now, but the phone just sits up here like that. And that's how I do the recordings. So this way is much leaner, and it just means you can move around a lot faster. But I'll show a bit more on the kit later. Actually, just one other thing. Often if I'm doing an interview, the other kind of microphone I can use, and this is actually a bit cheaper, these are about 60, 70 quid, is what's called a tie mic or a lavalier mic. So one of these you would attach here like that onto the person you're interviewing. The other end, this one is now USB, so that can go straight into a modern iPhone, but you get them for any kind, you get them for Lightning port as well. And once that's in, you get excellent quality sound, but it's only picking up sound from while the person's speaking. You're not, and it also means they're wired in, so there's a bit less mobility. Can we go to the next slide, please? So at the moment, as I said, I left BBC last year and I've joined Business Leader. So if you want to check us out, this is our LinkedIn page. That's probably the best place to keep up with us. And all the content I make goes here. And if you go into the next one, that's my own LinkedIn. So that's probably my main place to share content now, because Twitter's become a bit of a cesspit. So I kind of left that. But LinkedIn, perfect for business. And a very good way. All of you guys, if you're all business people, this is where you make real life opportunities happen. And lots of good things have come my way from putting the content here. So yeah, if you follow me here, I share a lot of tips as well, quite a lot of the time. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Yep.
Okay, so I said that with Business Leader, I'm doing stuff a bit differently. I'm doing more different kinds of formats, things that we know do well, and you can be quite nimble when you're a smaller organization. On LinkedIn, what we definitely find is that they love vertical video at the moment. That's what they prioritize. They've got a special new tab on the app that's just for vertical. And sometimes when we get things right, we're just getting massive engagement. Business Leader has about 25,000 followers. I've got about 10,000, but the video I'm about to show now reached 350,000 people and got about 40,000 views, which for us is excellent. So we just play this. Sorry, before you play, this is from a series I make called My Business Leader Secret. So once a week, personal advice from a business leader or an entrepreneur.
Don't underestimate the power of reverse mentoring.
Beth Butterwick became Managing Director of Clarendon Fine Art in 2023. The company is about to open its 90th gallery in the UK. Butterwick comes from a fashion retail background. She was previously CEO of Karen Millen and Jigsaw.
As an established business leader, it's so easy to think that you have all the skill sets, but we're navigating new territories and unknown waters. What I love about surrounding myself with young people in any business is they can teach you so many things. At the moment, I'm being reverse mentored by someone more junior in the organization. He's an absolute wizard in augmented reality and artificial intelligence. He's teaching us how to implement this into the business to make us more productive, and I'm loving learning with him. I think as a leader, you've got to be really open to allow other people, especially younger people, to coach you and educate you and nurture you so you become an even more rounded leader.
So that wasn't the actual version that went out, but it was similar. And actually, I remember with that one, what we did was I uploaded it to TikTok. TikTok has got really good captions, I think. So you published it on TikTok, downloaded it, and then put that onto LinkedIn just to use their captions. A few lessons from that. One, obviously, it's because it's designed for social media. You have the person looking into the camera, so it feels a bit more intimate, and they're giving advice rather than in a news report. It's more objective, and they're kind of speaking to the reporter off camera. That's the first thing about it. It's also quite short. It's like 90 seconds. Arguably, it should be even shorter. We're experimenting with shorter formats. As I said, it's vertical. I'll show you in a second, but actually I do film them horizontally, and then I do a separate edit to make them vertical because that performs better on LinkedIn and it's good for Instagram and TikTok as well. But I film horizontal because if you have it horizontal, you can make it vertical, whereas it's quite difficult to do it the other way around. And also I'm filming in 4K, so I'm capturing a lot of resolution. So to reframe things so it fits in vertical isn't a problem. And we do put our videos sometimes on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or we play them at events and sort of conferences. So we want to have it in the horizontal size as well. A couple of little other creative points about that one. And by the way, so that's the one that did really well, that like got a reach of 350,000. I don't know why that did well. I think she liked it and she shared it with her own network, and maybe she's got quite an engaged workforce. And if you do that quite early on after publication, maybe the algorithm likes it or something. But it did, without any paid reach, it did really well. But one little creative learning from it is, again, I said you go in with an idea, a storyboard in your head of what the visuals are going to be. And obviously with an art gallery, that's got very good visuals. But when I first met her, she wanted to do the interview in like a hotel nearby, because the people in the gallery are very busy meeting people off the street, trying to persuade them to buy paintings. It was slightly inconvenient for to us to film there. So it took a bit of persuasion to have her do it in the gallery. But of course, that makes it look so much better when she's talking about the art world and she's standing in front of the paintings. So location is very important, and you've got to kind of negotiate that a little bit. Another little thing I'll say about that one, actually two things, is obviously when you go somewhere to film, you're capturing the stuff on your phone, you're filming it, and you're sucking up all the material you can for the edit. You want as many pictures as possible. but there's quite a few shots in that which were actually still images, because the phone is also brilliant at taking still images, which are really high resolution and look great in an edit. So don't forget to take still pictures. And also there was some bits in it which was provided by her, like there's a little bit of corporate footage, corporate video that showed some of her employees, which I didn't have pictures of. So sometimes when you're filming with someone, don't forget to ask what they can give you. Often these days, people have a lot of, you know, still images they can share with you, or stuff they put on social media that then you can use yourself. I'm just going to play the next video, and you'll see it's from the same series. It's a different person, but you'll see that it's horizontal. So that's how I actually film them.
This one? Or the next one, right?
Yeah. So with bloom and white, yeah.
A mistake in business is actually an opportunity.
Aaron Gelbard founded Bloom & Wild in 2013. It specializes in online flower delivery. Last year, it hit revenues of 110 million and it employs more than 350 people.
At Bloom & Wild, we send out millions of flower bouquets, plants and gifts every year. Unfortunately, occasionally we get things wrong. Sometimes there are quality problems or problems with our delivery partners. When our customers complain, we go to extraordinary lengths to make things right for them. Sometimes when we can, we actually try to make things right before they even complain if we know that something's going to go wrong with the delivery. We obsess over customer feedback, and we see that our strongest advocates aren't our customers for whom things have just always gone right. There are customers where things have gone wrong, and we have gone the extra mile to do something about it, either reactively or especially proactively. And so rather than just letting mistakes happen, if you can use them as an opportunity to form more of a relationship with a customer, earn more of their trust, then that's how you build your strongest customer relationships and your biggest fans.
So you can see there that that's filmed horizontal, and that's how I film all my stuff. And since I now use an iPhone 15 Pro Max, which has a big memory and it has good battery life, and you can film in cinematic mode, and it films 4K. So I film everything in 4K, and what that means is you can crop things down and without losing any quality. So there's again lots of different ways to do it. That's how I do it at the moment. I can see so there's some questions coming in at the side, but I'll try and go through them all at the end for now. And by the way, I don't know what it's like when you're watching it. Some of these videos, it's a little bit stuttering and you can't hear the music, like this music that should be on it, but I think you get a rough idea of what these things look like. Can we go to the next slide, please?
A mistake.
Not just a very quick sketch of how I got to this point. So I started out, if you look at these pictures, on at the BBC like 20 odd years ago as a researcher in a show called Hard Talk, doing interview programs. And I kind of rose up the ranks there for about 4 years, became eventually a producer. So you're learning how to do filming, you're working with camera crews. And that's Gavin Esler on the right, one of the presenters who worked on it, a very nice guy. Can we go to the next picture? Met quite a few celebs doing it. That was Dolly Parton's house in America, in Nashville. Next one, please. Patrick Swayze as well. Next one. And this is an example of a location shoot. So we'd go to someone's house and we'd set up the big cameras and we'd do the interview. And it would, as a producer, I'm kind of watching all this and working with the crews. And what you realize is that it takes about two and a half hours to set up 2 cameras. And everything is very staged and laborious, getting everything right, the lights. And then, you know, most of the people we were interviewing were politicians or people who'd done lots of media interviews. And you could see that you have to be kind of used to interviews in order to do well in them, because it's such an artificial procedure. And it's like going to the dentist or something. You've got all the lights shining on you, people watching you, people buzzing around. I always felt it was a bit kind of unnatural, and I didn't like it. And I was bursting with ideas of films that I wanted to make, little ideas that I wanted to make films about. So BBC does excellent training. Over time, I asked to learn how to film. And luckily for me, about that time, cameras were becoming much cheaper and they were training producers up. So I used one like this, which is, I think it's a Sony Z1. It was very popular at the time. They're, again, cheaper, getting easier to use. If you ever watch Strictly Come Dancing, when they filmed, you know, contestants practicing in the studios and stuff, often they just gave one of those cameras to to a junior production member to do a bit of filming. So that's how I learned, and I also learned to do editing at the same time, which took several years. But luckily, because of the website, there was lots of opportunities to go out and get easy commissions and film stories that would go online, because they would never have asked you to do something for the TV bulletins, which is very high pressure. But story for online, we're doing more of them and there's less pressure. It was a good way to learn. But then what happened after that is about 2015, iPhone 6 comes out, and that's the first one that can film in HD. And what becomes obvious is, if you think of this big heavy camera, which, you know, I was really proud to be able to use it. It took a lot of time and effort to learn how to use these things. But the iPhone is like just the size of the viewfinder. So how much more convenient is your life if all you need is that? So I switched to iPhone. I started doing all my stories that way. If we go to the next slide, please. That meant I could go on like an international assignment. Everything I need to make a story, including to file it back to base and put it on TV, could fit in a rucksack like that, which is from a trip I did to Sweden. Next slide, please. Then the other thing I realized was that not only was it more convenient for me, but you find that your subjects are much more at ease when it's filmed with a phone, rather than 3 or 4 people turning up with a huge camera and sort of shining lights at you. And this is the one I always remember, because this guy came across as super confident in the interview, which was, he owns a manga shop in Glasgow. He's from Vietnam. And I thought, wow, what a brilliant guest. But he told me afterwards, wow, you don't realize how nervous I was about doing a BBC interview. I didn't sleep for 2 nights. This was such a big deal to me. But when I saw you just get the phone out and how easy it was going to be, and I've got a phone, I know how that works. It made me so relaxed, and I was, you know, I really enjoyed doing it. So thank you. So I realized that actually it's a big unlock using the phone as well, apart from anything else. Next slide, please. And I even did one story which is all about homelessness, and that was, you know, it took a lot of care speaking to people and doing the interviews when we set this up. Not just me, but the whole team. I was helping someone else on a story. But I always remember this guy, you know, said to me, I've got very little in the world, but one thing that makes us the same is that I also have a phone. So in that sense, we were absolutely equal. It wasn't, again, like a TV crew turning up saying, I'm the superhero here to tell your story and you can never do this. They've got a phone just like you have. So that's the kind of other side of using the phone that I hadn't expected, but it's been amazing. Next slide, please. Okay, the reason I want to show this one is, this is the first film I ever made completely on the phone. So I think it was from about late 2015, early 2016. And a few things I want to bring out from this one. This has had like more than definitely over 1 million, maybe 3 million views on Facebook now over time, because it's people just get drawn into the conversation about it. But I was basically on my lunch breaks at work, I'd go past this shop, and I was just quite intrigued by it, because I saw this woman who you see there going in and out of it, and I thought, well, she's wearing quite strange clothes. I was very curious about it. So one day I popped in, I started speaking to her about it, and she told me how she was interested in artisan clothes and slow fashion. So I said, do you mind if I make a film about you? And I'm going to do it on the phone. I haven't used the phone before. And she said, yes. So we'll watch it now. And then there's a few like stylistic things and also soft skills about storytelling I wanted to tell you as well. But if we play the film first. She will speak later. Is there any sound?
Am I not sharing sound all this time? 1 second. Has the sound been playing or not?
I think it did before.
1 sec. I mean, there is a... Hold on 1 second. I'm just going to stop sharing.
This one, I don't know if it has subtitles, whereas some of the other ones did.
I thought I was sharing sound.
And again, I said at the start, but I put links to all of these in the chat at the very top.
1 second.
People saying it's muted on Facebook, that's separate. That's a screen grab. That's not the actual.
Okay, let's
If
try.
it doesn't, just play it and I can explain some stuff. And if you want to watch it later, it's in the link. So it's back one. That's a screen grab. So it's back two.
Sorry, 1 second.
There she is. The first time you see her, it will be that one. Yeah. Just try playing it. Is the volume up on the right-hand side on the bar?
1 second.
Yeah.
Can people hear the sound?
I'm not hearing it.
No sound? Oh no. This is annoying.
Unless the original video that I sent you doesn't, but I don't think so.
No, it does have sound.
You can hear it, can you?
Yeah, I can hear it. I don't know how to share the sound. Do you want to try? 1 second.
The only thing, sometimes there's preferences, and it's at the top, like share preferences or something, I think it's called.
Yeah, let me see if you can.
Under share screen, it might have preferences, or either that or under more.
Thing is, I don't get that option. Oh, okay.
Yeah, check your Zoom sound settings. So
Mono or stereo?
mono should be fine, I think.
Okay, cool. I think we're on. Huh? Sorry, guys. I'm getting this message on my screen. Oh, it's blocking me. What's going on?
What we could do is, if we take 2 minutes, if everyone in the chat goes to the very top where it started, I put in a link to this video, so we could all just take 2 minutes and watch it. It's on PopUp. No, sorry, what's it called? Oh, maybe I haven't shared this one yet. No, I haven't shared it yet. Although I could quickly find it.
Hold on.
Tell you what, for now, if you want, just play it without the sound, and some of it has got text on screen anyway.
I have a little issue that my UN, can you start sharing? It's not letting me do anything. What's going on? Sorry, guys. Oh, it's blocked. Not quite sure how to. 1 second.
While you're looking at that, something I was going to say about this is you can see at the beginning of that video, she's just sort of standing there in front of her shop. And obviously that's not something she would normally do. So sometimes when you're making these videos, you've got to kind of direct the action, explain to the person the kind of shot you want and why, and then get them to take part in it. So you can kind of create these scenes that you know will be a strong opening for the video. And that's especially important for digital videos, because when it's online, if someone's scrolling, you need to give them some reason to stop and look at it because they're a bit intrigued. In some stories you'll do such an amazing location, it will just, you film the stuff that's there. But on other occasions, like a clothes shop, you might have to think a bit more laterally about what kind of shot, what kind of visuals can I create that's going to make it engaging at the beginning. So that's an example of that. I'll also send a link to it later on, because it is still on Facebook, even though it's a bit of an old one now. While that's being looked at as well, I could just check out a few questions in case there's anything to answer. Are you able to share, Emmy, just the actual video and play it?
I think Emmy's left the meeting. I think she's trying to rejoin, so I guess there are some tech issues at the moment.
Yeah, that's just it. Some people saying I think maybe if you just join the chat, maybe you don't see what was shared at the very beginning. So I'm just going to reshare now some of the relevant files. So I'll start off with the pop-up shops one.
Doug, shall I start sharing again?
Yeah, try again. And I'm just sharing some of the and even if the sound doesn't come, just play it. Well, that sound, yeah.
Customers have come back who bought stuff 20 years ago that I made, and they still come in wearing the clothes. You know, environmentally sound way, it's better to buy fewer things. That's what we advocate. Buy one good thing that you love and wear to death. And every one of these pieces here takes a machinist who's been on the machines for 40 years a day to make. The competition is the high street and cheaper. So if people are going to pay, it has to be radically different. And hopefully they'll still be able to be worn in 50 years. Each row, because of the French seams making it stronger, the machinist has to know what she's doing to actually, when she's sewing it, to match it. All the check matches, can you see?
And that's expensive.
Very expensive. Slow, one at a time. Like 3 or 4 rows of stitching on each row. That particular garment is probably 3/4 to a day's work. As somebody who's been machining 40 years deserves to earn £10 an hour. Mrs. Smith, who's never sewn anything or doesn't know much, you know, they find it more difficult to put their hand in their pocket.
Do you wish that more people could afford it?
Yes, I do. A lot of people who really love it can't afford it. The people like me, other artisanal people. The other sad thing is people who have enough money and just buy it because they have enough money and they're not going to really wear it.
They don't appreciate it.
Yeah. So that's, you know, but you can't control that.
Slow fashion is for rich people at the moment.
At the moment it is, and also the problem is all the Primarks and these type of stores have given people a false sense of actually how much work goes into garment making. If you make garments and you know about this industry, you know many lives have been compromised to get that out there at £20.
So there is a couple of things to take from that one. One is that sometimes you think, oh, to get really good stories that are going to do well online, you need great access. You need to be maybe at the BBC or ITV or Channel 4, or you need to know PR people that are going to send you great opportunities. But that's not true at all. If you're just curious about life around you, there's all kinds of interesting human stories that you can tell. And that one, yeah, that was an example. That was just something I walked past, thought it was interesting, and she was happy to be filmed and do a story. And that applies to lots of things. And I even made a whole series based on that idea called My Shop that was just stories about interesting independent shops, but definitely not people who had kind of expensive PRs. The other thing to say about that film is that if you see the interview at the very beginning where she's just sitting down in her shop, she was very, very, very nervous because she was quite a very nervous person. And she really climbed up and she didn't... I just thought when I'd filmed that first bit, I thought this won't work as a film because she was so nervous she couldn't really say anything meaningful. She could just kind of give information about her shop and what it did. She couldn't express herself and why she was so passionate about it. And with interviews, I think we often say you interview for emotion, not for information. If someone's just going to be explaining practical details, you might as well do that with a voiceover or text on screen. If you're going to have somebody on camera, you want them to be conveying passion, emotion, or some kind of motivation. And yeah, with her, actually, what I found looking back on it was a bit of a learning experience, because even though I was using the phone, which I thought would make everybody more relaxed, I'd still set it up on a tripod. I still had her sitting down. I still had her wired up on a mic, and that made her very nervous, even though it was just a small phone. So actually, what saved that film was, even though I'd thought, oh, this didn't work out and that's kind of terrible after the first interview, when I asked her to take me around the shop so I could get more pictures. And it was when we were on the stairs and she was pointing out a clothes rack of some of the shirts, and she forgot that that was, a filming thing anymore. That's when she started to get passionate and explain all the stuff about Primark and why people deserve to be paid when they very skillful at making clothes. So I said to her at that point, look, I haven't got the tripod here or anything, but this is the kind of stuff I want to record. Do you mind if I record this? She said, yeah. We picked it up there. And that's why it doesn't have good light. It's not a proper microphone. So the sound quality isn't so good, but that doesn't matter, because that was the moment she was actually speaking with passion about what she cared about. So it worked in the film. This slide you're on here, this isn't an actual video. This is just a screen grab. But you can see there, it's now on 3.1 million views. And what's driven that is probably the fact it's had 1.6 thousand comments. So when you're creating a film, sometimes you're just identifying, for social media at least, an interesting topic, and then you're letting people, comment on it and share their opinion about it, whether they're in favor or against. You've created the kind of conversation piece that they talk around, and that helps it to be shared more on social media. So, keep a lookout for stories like that, because you might be a business person and you just want to maybe just bang on about yourself and your own great products. But actually, if you think, you might have more impact if you think about it, if you just identify the things which are of interest to the community that you want to reach and do films about that, rather than just always making it about your narrow product idea. Next slide, please. Just a few practical things about filming with your phone. So the drawbacks are, it's obviously not designed for filming. I mean, it's designed to be a stills camera, but it's not designed to be really a piece of professional video kit. So quite a lot of the time you're having to think about, extra things to do to make it work. For example, putting it on airplane mode before you start filming. Even remembering to hit play, because there's no physical button, it's all touch screen. So you've got to make sure that the actual, the phone's running. By the way, in terms of the apps you use, again, I don't really feel like I can recommend one, because there's literally dozens of good ones these days. But if you want to know what I do now these days, if I'm filming an interview, I film on cinematic mode using the native camera app on iPhone. I've always been an iPhone person. And if I'm filming just general shots of locations and things like that, then I use Apple's free Final Cut camera app, which came out last year. But there's also other very good ones. Filmic Pro I've used before, Blackmagic to do a camera. Was it Cinema P5, I think? If you look it up, there's lots of very good cameras, and there's not necessarily that much difference between them, and quite a lot are free as well. The other thing about phones is that an iPhone Pro Max now is a bit different. It's got 3 lenses. So it's got, I think it's a ×2 lens or something. So you can see stuff in the distance quite well, and you can certainly get really good wide shots. But in general, if something's happening far away, the old big cameras like these, were brilliant. If something was happening 20, 30 meters away, you could just zoom in standing on the spot. With the phones, it doesn't really do that. So we say your legs are your zoom. You've got to physically go up to the thing happening if you want to get shots of that. And sound, typically it's not that easy to record 2 or 3 different sound sources. It's usually just getting one source of sound into the film. So if you're going to have multiple guests speaking in an interview, for example, I would typically just have one microphone, hold it in my hand and let them speak, rather than try and have separate bits of sound coming into the phone. Next slide, please. But the benefits are massive. It's very, very light. So yeah, when you used to film a big camera kit, it's like going on holiday, massive heavy tripod, huge bag, spare batteries. With the phone, it's nothing. You just fit it in a rucksack. Being light as well means you can get really interesting camera angles. So you can stick the phone places you can't stick a big camera, whether it's high up on a ceiling on a little shelf or tucked away in a corner. You're always trying to use it to get the most surprising angles possible. Shots from above, if you put it on a stick, you can almost have it as a kind of little drone flying above. It's brilliant for that. For discrete filming, it's good. Sometimes you want to film somewhere and you're allowed to film there. It's not disallowed, but it might feel slightly awkward to be filming. But these days, especially because everyone else is, tourists are out filming with their phone, you can get shots quite easily without attracting much attention. It's also much cheaper, obviously, than getting a big camera kit. You can film 4K, you can do slow-mo, you can do time-lapse photography, and there's new apps coming out all the time that will let you do different tricks. And the other good thing about it is once you've filmed on the phone, you can do basic edits on it, and you can upload stuff straight to social media straight away. So it's much faster as well. I think, yeah, I want to leave time for like questions and stuff. So sorry, I've got the tail end of the cough. I'm happy now just to take any questions, and I've got quite good technical knowledge, especially of all the the different bits to do filming, but also any creative questions too. I don't know if Emmy or someone wants to sort of pick out the ones to ask.
Yeah. Okay, let me scroll back to, or people are welcome to put their hand up and we can unmute you. Let me see if I can see people. Any hands up? Maybe I lost it. Let me see.
I can pick out a few. I mean, someone's saying I prefer Android to iPhone. Yeah, you can do all this on an Android as well, so it's not a problem. For example, when it comes to the apps for filming, apart from the Final Cut ones, which are made by Apple, they're available. There's equivalents on Android as well. So everything that I've talked about, all the storytelling stuff obviously applies to everything, but when it's to do with the technicalities of filming, everything I do can be done on Android. And for example, funnily enough, actually, when I talked about sound before, so there's this microphone here, and this is pointing the right way. This is a USB connection. So actually, I had this for a long time, same as this one, which I use for interviews, USB, and I couldn't use it in my kit bag because I thought it was made for Android and iPhone. When I had an iPhone 12, that has a lightning port. But when iPhones switched to a USB, all of a sudden I could use that mic kit. So stuff that was designed previously for Android now works on the iPhone. It's kind of slightly agnostic, really. So all the hardware, you're going to find something that works for Android just as well as iPhone, and Android also has excellent apps for filming.
That's awesome. Okay, Lisa wants to talk. I'm gonna ask you to unmute, Lisa.
Hi, thank you so much, Dougal. That was really interesting. Can you recommend a tutorial? Is there a go-to tutorial for editing? Because I'm really fortunate. I get to go to really nice places that lend itself to what I'm trying to do. And I've got so much footage on my phone.
Yeah.
I have no idea how to edit it. And I'd like to learn.
I know that when I learned, I did stuff at the BBC, which was in person, but then somebody bought us something called Ripple Training, RIPPLE, which I think they had paid for it. And that contained loads and loads of courses, and I basically worked my way through all of them. That was designed to learn on Final Cut. So I use Apple Final Cut to edit at the moment.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's commercially available, or they may even have some online for free as well. I don't know, but definitely I would say that was an excellent course. But having said that, I'm sure if you look on YouTube, there'll be lots of people giving free editing courses.
Yeah.
And because they make money obviously off the adverts doing it. So if you just search, I don't know what editing program you have. I definitely recommend Final Cut. Adobe Premiere is also good. But if you search up the name of the editing platform, there'll be people offering free tutorials. And then the only other thing I'll say is that LinkedIn, if you have access to learning on LinkedIn, I think you might have to be a premium subscriber for that. Then it has a massive wealth of professional courses, and I'm pretty sure I've seen editing courses on that.
Okay, I use CapCut, so
yeah.
Well, at the moment, so
CapCut's
I guess
free, isn't it?
It is free, but I've got the Pro version.
Yeah.
Which is cheaper than Final Cut Pro.
Yeah. And it does. I've used it before. I think it does very good. It's got a good subtitling thing on it, or auto-generate subtitles. To be honest, if you're just doing basic editing, you can kind of practice the basics yourself on iMovie and CapCut, because they are pretty intuitive to use. Yeah. If you're just putting basic footage down and really simple editing, yeah, to do the more complicated stuff and the effects and I don't know, things to do with sound, then it gets more complicated. But I'd say to do very simple films, you could probably figure it out if you just, you know, yourself by mucking around on it.
Yeah, I guess it's trying to work out what would be interesting to the community that I want to serve, I guess. But yeah, thank you. That helped.
Yeah, well, do some practice. I'd say do some practice ones, put it out there, and just listen to their feedback, and don't make it too long. The worst ones are kind of indulgent and too long, and you think, oh, this is all too good for me to take anything out. But things are almost always improved by you really cutting it back, and maybe show it to as many people as possible before you publish the first one.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I think we have Patricia next. I've asked you to unmute.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just a quick question, because all what you have shown, which is great, is sort of filming somebody else. But I tend to do a lot of filming myself. And so I always end up with a little, selfie stick, and because I have a transcript, so I really need to look at the screen, obviously.
Yeah.
But what I always end up is like, I always end up rather on one side of the screen, or not. When I need to put it on Instagram and then on LinkedIn, I end up having to do 2 versions of the same video. Is that right, or am I doing something wrong? And I'm using an iPhone, and it's only an SE 2020, so I don't have all the features for the the one-to-one. So I don't know how to do that better.
So I sometimes record myself during the filming process, particularly to ask if I'm asking somebody a question. And the way I do that is I would set up a tripod, and then I would put the phone in selfie mode. So put the camera pointing towards me. So that way I can see myself while it's recording. And then I would record as normal. And you can either set the camera to mirror mode or have it the other way. You can experiment with both. But even in the edit, you can like flip it around once it's in the edit. So I've always been able to make it work. But so I don't quite understand, why is it not working at the moment?
Well, because the thing is, what I do, so I go around buildings and showing stuff and on walls or things, and so when I'm talking, I'm trying to show to people what I'm talking about. So I always end up just because I cannot really see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So I always end up not really showing what I want to show, and it just gets really messy.
2 possible things I'd say. One is, can you film it in 2 separate takes? So say there's 5 things you want to talk about in the video. Go around once, just concentrating on you filming yourself, and then walk around the same route again, but this time recording the bits that you're talking about, and then in the edit, just put one over the other at the relevant points.
Yeah.
That's one way you could do it. The other thing, I've also got an Insta360 camera. I don't know if you know about them. I think they're about 200, 250 quid, but I use it a lot. It's really good. And it records in a sort of in a sphere. So if you could walk around holding it in front of you as a selfie stick. And then in the edit, you could basically either decide to have it pointing at your face or pointing in any direction you choose. So that would actually be quite good for architecture. But I don't know how you record good sound on that. You might have to record it separately, or you might decide the sound is good enough, but in a sort of noisy street or something, the sound might not be good enough.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. And then we got Justin.
Oh, hi. Thanks to a really interesting presentation. Mine's a question just on mindset, and did you find it difficult to sort of, release that, BBC mindset into more of an independent operator, or do you just do everything to kind of BBC quality?
Has been quite a big change. On the whole, it's been excellent from a creative point of view for several reasons. One, there's less, if you're bursting with ideas like I am, it's a lot you can be a lot more nimble and dynamic and get your ideas out quickly, because you haven't got lots of layers of management like you get in any big organization. You have to approve ideas, look at it once you've filmed it, then decide what day it can go out. Now I can just do stuff really quickly. So I'm probably turning over twice as many films as I did before. Second big change is that in the past, social media has changed the playing field quite a lot. So before, a really good thing about the BBC or any other big media publisher, traditional media publisher, is that was your route to reach a massive audience, and that was the upside of being with them. But now, thanks to social media, some of my videos reach more than I would at the BBC just through my personal account on LinkedIn, because it's just things are much more optimized for the individual rather than the company or the organization. So I was worried when I left the BBC that I won't have the same impact with the stories and they won't travel so far. And that's sort of true in general, but some of the stories are going even further, and it's actually not such a big deal as it would have been in the past. And the other interesting thing is that when you're in a big organization, like for me, like the phone that you use is really important. So whenever when I was at the BBC, I'd say every year, please can I get the latest iPhone? It's got all these cool new things on it. But the rule at the BBC, which is a fair rule, I understand it, is no, we only give employees the phone that's 2 years old to save money, because that's value for money. And I said, I understand that, but that's the rule for people who are using it to make phone calls in the field. I'm using this to like make videos and films, and the kit. Someone in my role would have spent £10,000 on a camera before. The phone is a lot cheaper than that. I'm actually saving money, but no, it's one rule for everyone. The phone has to be 2 generations old. So then you join a small company, and it's just a very easy conversation. You say, "Can I have the latest iPhone? Will you do better films of it?" Yes, okay, let's get one, and it's done.
Mm-hmm.
So the rules can be made more for an individual when you're in a small company. So yeah, there's obviously good sides and downsides, but I've been surprised as a creative. There's lots of really good things about being in a smaller company.
That's great. Okay, Gaia, I know you have your hand up, but let's answer one question from the chat. I feel guilty that I've ignored it. Okay, so what AJ asks, what is the length of video for video blogs or podcasts? I don't know if you know the answer to
that. In terms of podcasts, I don't know if you mean audio ones or video ones, but so for a business leader, when I do interviews of entrepreneurs, I do everything on the phone, but I do a podcast first, recorded on the iPhone, which typically lasts 20 to 30 minutes once it's edited, and then I do the video that lasts 2 minutes. But we are always having debates about this. We're saying, should we be videoing our podcasts, and if so, should we be filming that on the phones? Can we film for like half an hour on the phones, maybe setting up 2 phones? Could you film it with 1 phone? So we're always experimenting, and I haven't got the right answers on that. Some people would say you might as well put a podcast in video form and put it on YouTube every time. But at the moment, we're not doing that. In terms of optimum length, I think so our main interest is LinkedIn, because we're doing business stuff. And if you guys here are business people and you run small businesses, I suggest LinkedIn is the kind of, and Instagram for some of you, but in general, definitely LinkedIn is the most important place. Then it seemed they want vertical videos at the moment, and they want really under 2 minutes. And we work quite closely with the LinkedIn team. Their offices are actually quite near ours. And I met the head of LinkedIn in the UK last week, and I was chatting with her about what they want. And I think a good thing to remember is they don't want to be like Twitter or Facebook. They don't want kind of politics on there. They don't want these general controversial conversations. They want it to be a network for professionals to grow their career. So, and they want people to be sharing insights. So my tip for LinkedIn would be, whenever you make a video, think to yourself, what's the learning here that's going to be useful to somebody else, and highlight that, not just in the video itself, but in the text that goes with the video, and make that as clear as possible. And then according to them, the algorithm will like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Gaia, your go. Unmute it. Or I ask you to unmute, sorry.
Okay, yeah. I do embroidery, and I would love to get the really sound of the needle go, through the thread. I tried, but I don't know what kind of materials do I need to buy, or tools that I need to buy to really get that tiny sound.
Yeah, well, first of all, you're right, because the thing that I think really enhances a video and makes a good video an excellent video, and sometimes you're not quite sure what that is when you're watching it, is actually the sound. That when you really pay attention to the sound in the edit. And often when I'm editing, I'll do a separate edit where I'm doing nothing but thinking about the sound. And little small things, like if you film somebody doing embroidery, and let's say you built a sequence where you're doing a wide shot, an over the shoulder shot, a close up of what's happening, and that might fit together very nicely visually. But then what will really lift it is if you can add some sound of I don't know what it is. The needle, the kind of clicking
So
noise.
it's like this. So I'm trying to get, you know, the video on here.
Yeah.
And the needle, you know, go through it and actually make a sound. I try to film it, but I cannot get the sound because you got all the backgrounds.
What I would do is film the sounds or record the sounds separately. So film because it doesn't have to be in sync. It doesn't. No one's going to know if you get the sound slightly separately. So film what you need to film first, and then do a separate recording where you're just prioritizing the sound. So first of all, just do it with the phone because the phone's very good at close-up recording, and put the microphone of the phone as close as you can to the source of the sound, so where the clicking or whatever it is comes from, and do the action lots of times and adjust the distance a little bit, and then put that into the edit as just extra sound on top and see if that works. I don't know what kind of editing editor you're using, but you can do various filters that will remove any background room noise and prioritize the sound. If it's very, very quiet, the noise it makes, what you could do is like stack it up. So instead of just having it once, kind of cheat a little bit and repeat it, and that will increase the volume of it.
Oh, I didn't know.
So yeah, try that. I don't know. There's just some ideas.
Thank you. Do you suggest any microphone to buy? Or should I just look in Amazon?
I can send some links. I've got a wide variety basically in case any of them fail. I've always got a backup one and another backup one.
If you send us a link, that'll be awesome. We share them with the
I send a link. But for recording something up close like that, the phone one could actually be quite good if you're really close to the source of the sound.
Thank you for your.
Okay, we got one more, Nina. I think I asked you to unmute. Yeah. Oh. I don't know what's happening. Okay,
now I can. You didn't allow me to join you guys for some reason. Hi, Dougal. Hi, Business School. Thank you so much for organizing and thank you so much for your time. Just a quick question. When you do, let's say, a video of 2 minutes, how much we should speak on a video and have a visual, like any percentage equivalent? What's that?
Probably the best, I'd say the more video to speech, the better. What it should be all about what you see. The perfect one might not need you speaking at all. It would be like the most mesmerizing moment in cinema, in a film, is when you don't hear any talking. Your eyes are just following the action and you understand what's happening. So probably the perfect video, even on social media, would be you're just watching it transfixed and you don't need to hear anything to understand it. But also, I mean, you can only do that with certain stories. So I would say always prioritize where you can the visuals, but and don't crowd it with voice. And my other tip is, even though you're aiming for 2 minutes, I mean, it can be slightly longer if the story justifies it, but don't try and cram all the information in with a voiceover or you speaking and speak really fast, and don't let it come as a kind of tsunami at the listener or the viewer. Often what you have to do when you're editing is break up people speaking. So actually insert some artificial pauses between what they're saying, because otherwise it's a rush of information and people can't take it in. So in general, I would say less speaking or words and prioritize the visuals. Someone was asking, what's a good source of inspiration for video content? And I'll just remind you again, like I said at the beginning, Business Leader on LinkedIn especially, and me, Dougal Shaw, on LinkedIn. If you follow, like obviously I share all my videos there, usually at least one a day. And now and again, I share tips and stuff as well. So if you want to keep up to date, I put a lot of stuff on there.
Cool. I think we got one more. What's the best thing for removing background noise? Sandra is asking.
So I use Final Cut Pro. Final Cut is you pay a bit more for it. I think it's like it might be £200 or something, but I got it through work. When you're editing on Final Cut and you select sound, you can do lots of things, and one of them is one that I use quite a lot. It's called voice isolation. So quite often I'll be interviewing someone in an office and there's quite loud aircon in the background. That's a very common problem. And you might not even notice it when you're there normally, but when you're there to record, you've got headphones on, you'll really hear it. And 99% of the time, voice isolation is so good now, it just gets rid of it. And it's like you're speaking to the person in a kind of voice booth in a recording studio. So to be honest, I don't know about other platforms. There'll be other editing platforms that have similar things. Usually there'll be like filters where you can play around with the different levels and you can isolate where the problem is with the background noise. But definitely on Final Cut, which is the one I know best, it has very good sound controls. It even has like a magic fix button where if you hit that, it would probably get rid of it. But if not, you can just hit voice isolation. And what that does is it removes background noise.
Awesome. And then do you have time for one more?
Yeah, I'll do one more, then I've got to go.
Okay, one more. Okay, Francesca, you're on.
Hi, thank you very much. It's very, very educative. I'm very new to editing and this kind of stuff. I have a 15 plus iPhone, and I did a photo shoot. Actually, a guy did a photo shoot for me, and he did it with my iPhone so that I could have everything on my phone straight away.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. I don't think it was very good because he did almost everything on not on landscape, vertical. So basically, when I went to do the editing on iMovie, it made everything small.
Yeah.
So it wasn't full screen.
Yeah.
And so, what is your suggestion on that? Because you have an iPhone, so what would you suggest to me without spending a lot of money?
Well, why does your final thing have to be horizontal in your case? Where are you going to publish it?
Well, I did. I put all the little shoot together to create a kind of video story about, for example, Christmas, with skating, drinking hot chocolate, this kind of stuff. So when I put the picture with the editing, the picture was full screen, and then the video shot became small. So it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same, the editing. It went from full screen.
Where are you going to publish it? Which platform are you going to publish it on?
Well, I put on Facebook, on Instagram.
But all these places like vertical video anyway. So basically, it's quite difficult. It would be very difficult to go from vertical back to horizontal. You're going to lose the framing. It'll look terrible. I would just try and stick with vertical, and that's probably the best you can do in this situation.
But if I do vertical anyway, is when I edit on iMovie, is always small. It doesn't become full screen. So
Yeah.
I read on Google that you have to do the horizontal one to have a full screen. So is that the same with other editing platforms?
No, to be honest with you, iMovie isn't. I think I found that before of iMovie that it doesn't like editing in vertical. So I think you need to use a different editing platform.
Okay.
There's one called Luma Touch, which is very. I don't know if that's still free. It's either free or cheap, but that's a really good vertical one.
Yeah. I am with Canva. I am with Canva. Maybe in Canva.
I don't know. I use Canva for work, but I only use it for stills really. But I know it does a lot these days, so possibly it does vertical. But I think your problem there is mainly with the iMovie editor that it doesn't like vertical, but other ones will let you edit in vertical.
So basically, the best thing is to pay a little bit and then do something a bit more professional then.
Yeah. But have you tried the free version of CapCut? That may do vertical.
Not yet. Not yet.
Try that. That might work. But there's definitely editors out there that will do vertical, of course, definitely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Okay,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Thanks for all the nice questions. I couldn't answer everything. If you do, if you do contact or follow or whatever on LinkedIn, and there's like a specific question, you can message me and I'll try to answer it. That's probably the best place. But thanks again for your time and I hope it's been helpful for you to be more creative for your businesses. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Guys. Bye.